Hi, this is Gilbert Gottfried, and this is Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast with my co-host, Frank Santopadre, and our engineer, Frank Verderosa. Our guest this week is an Oscar-nominated, Emmy-winning, and Grammy-winning musician, songwriter, arranger, and conductor, and the composer of some of the most recognizable and admired film and TV scores and TV theme songs of the last 6 decades. He's created scores and individual songs for over 100 films, including Barbarella, Goodbye Columbus, Victory at Entebbe, Foul Play, 9 to 5, Oh God Book 2, and National Lampoon's European Vacation, just to name a few. And composed music and theme songs for popular TV shows such as ABC's Wide World of Sports, Love American Style, Monday Night Football, What's My Line, Match Game, The Bugaloos, Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Wonder Woman, The Paper Chase, The Love Boat, co-written with our one-time podcast guest, Paul Williams, with another occasional writing partner, the late Norman Gimbel. He penned the hit song, I Got a Name, Killing Me Softly with his song, a #1 hit in 1974, and a personal favorite of yours truly, Ready to Take a Chance Again. His songs have been performed by a who's who of popular music, including Roberta Flack, Jim Croce, Johnny Cash, Lena Horne, Johnny Mathis, Barry Manilow, Olivia Newton-John and the Boston Pops, and even Fred Astaire. He's also composed the music for stage plays, live concerts, and ballets, and conducted symphony orchestras all over the world. And in 2010, he authored a terrific memoir called Killing Me Softly, My Life in Music. Please welcome one of our favorite composers, a member of the National Songwriters Hall of Fame, and a man who promised that he would do this podcast on the condition that I didn't sing any of his songs. The multi-talented Charles Fox.
Wait, I think I said that in jest. Where did you get that quote from?
We assumed you had heard him sing.
Hey, so guys, thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you for the lovely introduction. I think I need to take a vacation. I did so much work.
You did a lot, Charles. It's dizzying.
Before our listeners, some of our crazy listeners, are going to get angry that we left out your most important credit.
Which was that?
The green slime.
Had I known
this is a put on
that up, I would have said, could you sing one of my songs instead?
Truth be told, I told him the section from the book where you said the green slime followed you around for decades.
It does. Yeah. It does. Yeah. I didn't write any music for that at all. It was my first opportunity to make some extra money, if you want to know the truth, going back years ago. And I took the job, and it turned out that all I had to do was help them to find existing music and cut into the picture. And I took the job, and why are we talking about the green slime?
It was a throwaway joke.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's call this prologue.
A Japanese sci-fi movie.
Anyway, it was a Japanese sci-fi. And at first I called the producer back, the director, and I said, you know what? I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't spend the next few weeks cutting someone else's music, canned music. I said, it just goes against me. And I needed the money, to be honest with you. Going back 100 years of my career before I did my first picture.
Mm-hmm.
And he convinced me, he said, I'm counting on you. And I depend. Anyway, so I said, I'll tell you what, I'll do it under one condition, which took me a week or two. And when you use that kind of canned music, it was like, all right, you go into you audition some of the music, it might be right for a scene. And he said, "Oh, that sounds pretty good. Let me have about a pound and a half of that music, and a quarter of a pound of this kind of music." And you put it into the picture. I said, "I'll do it under one condition, that you don't put my name on the screen." And that was my only condition. And he did not live up to that condition. So it came up with the original Japanese composer who was hired.
Uh-huh.
And whatever I did, I took demos and I threw it into the film, whatever. And for years after that, I could be someplace in the film business, music business, someone would say, "Hey, I saw your picture last night. Green Slime." And they said, "Really? Why'd you do that picture?" I said, "Really? Why'd you watch that picture?"
That's the perfect answer. Had you heard of the Green Slime before this, Gilbert? Because you know every bad horror movie known to man.
Yes.
Yeah, he knows them all.
Well, don't remind me, okay?
Now, years ago, before I even knew you did the music, years ago, I saw the movie Zapped.
Oh.
With Scott Baio,
Right.
Willie Ames.
Scatman.
Scatman Crothers and Heather Thomas.
Right.
Which I thought was going to be, and we'll be discussing this with our next
We'll be
guest,
talking about it later, too.
Right.
Because this was a TNA teen sex comedy.
About telekinesis, right?
Yes. It was like kind of a takeoff on Carrie, and it was a terrible movie. But I swear to you, I liked the music.
Stayed with him all these years, Charles.
Zapped.
Really? Well, it's a funny thing because you start off with two of my least favorite projects. Where do we go from here?
But
We're good at that.
Practicing scales of hand and candles.
no matter what, I promise you, we are going to sing some songs from Zapped.
You're just getting even with me now. We know that. Oh, and I'll tell you about Zapped. So I wrote a bunch of songs, and two of them became classics in the Philippines.
Wow.
Only in the Philippines.
You're big in Manila.
Tell me which one. I'll sing it right now.
Gotta Believe in Magic?
Okay. I'll. All right. I'm ready.
Be careful, Charles. Be careful.
You want to sing it?
Yeah. Take me to your heart. Show me where to start. Let me play the part of your first love. All the stars are bright. Let us make a wish tonight, my love. Pity those who wait. Trust in love to fate. Finding out too late that they've lost it. Never let it go. You will never know the ways of love. Got to believe in magic. Show me how two people find each other. In a world that's full of strangers, got to believe in magic. It's stronger than the moon that shines above. 'Cause it's magic when two people fall in love.
You know what? I'm so amazed. This is first of all, I haven't played that in 40 or 50 years. And you are still singing that song.
Yes.
I'm afraid to tell you the other song that's in the Philippines.
Okay, I'm ready.
Because I can't remember.
Wait, don't say another word.
Yeah.
Is it King and Queens of... Yes. Okay. Want me to start? Come on, I'm ready. I love this.
I don't remember it myself.
Okay,
remember it.
fake it.
Fake
Okay.
what? Sing along.
Okay.
Yeah, you do it.
We're the king and queen of hearts. Hold me when the music starts. All my dreams come true when I danced with you.
That's great. That's right.
Oh, wait. Promise me you're mine tonight. I will wait in line tonight. with the lights down low. Never let you go. Did you dream that we'd dance together?
God.
In a night that we'd stay forever? In a dream that we thought would never end? And it's not my imagination or a part of the orchestration. This began with the coronation, where the king and the queen of hearts.
I am really amazed.
This is the greatest moment.
So for me, it is. I will tell you this.
Yeah.
It's only famous in the Philippines.
Honestly. Until now.
Until now.
Until we post it on Facebook.
You know, this may be the start of big things for me here, you know. I may have a career after this.
In the Philippines, I'm considered the next Charlie Chaplin.
I want to tell you something. You can go to the Philippines just singing that song. They'll love you there. Yeah.
I think Dara would like you to go to the Philippines.
And we're not going to do it now, but when the show ends, we have to do the ending of Zap, which is...
oh, I won't remember that at all.
Ready to get what you got.
Oh, I can't go there. I can't go there.
Well, fake it. That one I love.
We'll find some other ones for you.
It was performed by Plain Jane, was the name of this imaginary group.
We had 2 or 3 different groups, but David Pomerantz sang those 2 songs, and here's what happened. The movie wasn't a great movie, and it was over and done with, right? Years later, about 4, 5, 6, 7 years later, I went to see David Pomerantz perform a show with David Zippel, the great songwriter, who, a friend of mine, and we've collaborated.
Good writer.
Wonderful writer. And after the show, David Pomerantz comes up to me and says, "You do know that those 2 songs you wrote for me are big hits in the Philippines." I said, "How would I know that? I never saw royalties, and no one ever mentioned it." So he sent me a video of him singing, and as soon as they played a little bit of an introduction to "Gotta Believe in Magic," about 5,000 girls start screaming because they know the song. Since that time, because he's become very famous in the Philippines, they've been trying to get me there too for a while.
Amazing.
The truth. But every place that I've gone, whether we were on a cruise last year, we were on a Love Boat cruise, they got me to play the piano and sing some of my songs. All the waiters were Filipino. And if I ever mention it, I give people the Filipino test. I know if they're really Filipino, if they know that song.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and then they start singing anyway. So it was. What else about my past do you know?
This is an interesting thing from the book that I was sharing with Gilbert. Tell us, it was almost destined that you would be a musician because of something called the music bump?
Well, yeah.
Did you explain this to our listeners?
I don't think I explained that to anyone, could you? But I'll tell you the fabled story in my family.
Yeah,
supposedly,
it's interesting.
When I was born, I was the middle of 3 boys. The doctor supposedly looked at the young-born child that I was and said, "There's a bump. That's a music bump in the back of his head."
Amazing.
Well,
it meant what? That you...
It meant the doctor was drunk. I don't know. But there it is. I followed what he said.
And started playing the piano at age 9.
I did, yeah. I did.
And Frank and I were both interested is that you used to play in the Catskills.
Oh, yeah.
You put your first band together.
That's where we all got started. I have so many friends who got started in the Catskills. That's where all the great comics started,
Could you tell us some of the comics you worked with?
I played the piano. And first place I played, I was 15 years old, had my first band. And we were pretty thrilled to get a job, And there were other hotels, there were big hotels. There were 450 hotels in the Catskill Mountains. It was a pretty amazing place.
That?
And some of the biggest comedians in the world, but big bands, they were very beautiful places. They were large. I played a little place. And we didn't have new entertainment that came in. We had 2 people who came from Yiddish theater.
Harry Steinman being one of them.
You know too much about me. and Velma Ravel was the other one.
Did they go back to vaudeville?
They do, and they used to put on skits.
Amazing.
And Harry Steinman used to actually put lipstick on, like the old vaudeville thing, with pancake makeup, and they would act out plays and stuff, and I would sit there, just make up things to go along. A happy Jewish moment,
You guys are 15. You probably didn't know what hit you.
Well, maybe it's the start of my motion picture career. Anyway, that's where it started for me. I'll tell you who I did work with was Shelley Berman.
Yes.
Shelley did a show for me. We did in Florida for 6 weeks, and he was a friend. And
what a funny guy.
He was great. Yeah, he was a nice man. And,
we wanted to have him on this show, but he had taken a turn for the worse by the time we started. Yeah.
He would have been great, too.
But, it's very romantic in the book because you're talking about not only the Catskills, you romanticize it. You were 15 and the world was your oyster, but also the coming of age in New York at that time, and you're describing hanging out at the Blue Note and going to these jazz clubs, and there's a doo-wop group on every corner. I was, explaining it to Gilbert. Must have been great times.
It was great times, yeah. And it was an innocent time. So, the truth is, those days I really wasn't into pop music, rock and roll. I discovered Latin music, and I loved jazz and I loved classical music. But I wasn't into rock and roll of the 50s. I didn't get to appreciate it, honestly, until I got to do Happy Days. And they asked me to, I did a lot of the shows for Gary Marshall, and that was one of them. And that was actually an outgrowth of Love American Style. When I sat down to write Happy Days, I realized I was not into the 50s. I have to get some background. So I went out and bought 50s records. And, the 50s was a pretty simple time. It was Elvis Presley. It was either the blues of 1-6-2-5 chord progression. And so the really Happy Days was a 1-6-2-5 chord, meant to sound like a 50s song that would somehow come back and be a hit, which it turned out
became big hit.
Became big.
Thing about Happy Days too is, as you mentioned, they started with Rock Around the Clock.
Yes.
So it was at what point did Miller and Milkus, those guys came to you and said we need an original song for this?
Well, first of all, it was in Love American Style. They used to have 3 episodes a week.
Oh yeah, people forget that it came from Love and the Happy Days.
Love and the Happy Days.
Yeah,
was always
Love American
something.
Style.
And so that was one of the episodes. And ABC decided that they would make a pilot. They thought it'd be a good idea, and they decided to shelve it eventually because they thought that the world wasn't ready to revisit the 50s.
Yeah, we had Henry here, told us that.
Yeah. So then finally, when American Graffiti came out, and that was a big hit, ABC decided to give it a shot and put it on the air. So American Graffiti's theme was Rock Around the Clock. Norman Gimbel and I wrote Happy Days song right away for the pilot. But they thought, well, let's hold it for the end title. And for the main title, just wanted to create that 50s sound that everyone knows. They used Rock Around the Clock. So the show was on for a year, and it was doing pretty well. Not great, but great enough they gave it a second year. And they realized that somehow after a few episodes that Henry Winkler was fast emerging as the star of the show, even though Ronnie was great, Ron Howard. And also, Henry was getting a lot of letters. People really. He was fast becoming the star, a star actually. Mm-hmm. And the other thing they said is let's try it. We went from a film show to a 4-camera live show with an audience. And Gary Marshall was, like one of the funniest men ever. And he would warm up the audience, and they loved the people. And so they decided, well, if we're going to give it a new look and a new sound, we're going to do it for the fans at the store. And 4 cameras, let's use our Happy Days theme song at the beginning. And then it all broke open. We had a top, it was number 1 record in Europe, I know that, but it was top 5, I think, around the country.
Still one of the most beloved theme songs. And Gilbert and I got a kick out of the fact that you wrote a Ralph and Potsy, you wrote music for a Ralph and Potsy pilot and a Pinky Tuscadero one.
We did spin-offs.
They tried to spin it off.
Well, Laverne and Shirley was a spin-off.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And finally, Mork and Mindy.
And you wrote the theme music to Love American Style.
Mm-hmm.
And also that interstitial music that would play.
You know what I did there? That we had little vignettes.
Yeah.
So on those little vignettes, I treated them like a different classical composer would do that. One time it's Beethoven, one time Chopin, Brahms, and I would just treat them as separate and different musically than the theme itself.
Yeah, those were some of the greatest scores.
They were fun. Actually, one of the truth, the 17th, if Arnold Margolin is hearing this, he was a creator. Arnold
I met Arnold at a party a couple years ago.
Well,
He's
I'm
a
going to see
sweet
him
guy.
at a party in a couple of weeks.
Oh, good. Please
They're
give
having
my
a
best.
Love America style reunion at the Paramount Commissary, which he called me and make sure I'm going to get there.
Wow.
And so those of us who are around,
And Stuart's coming too?
I don't know if Stuart's coming.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
I think he's in the Midwest. We had him on the
Yes,
show too. We had
yes.
Stuart.
Stuart's great. Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably the first time I saw the name Charles Fox on my television. Was Love American
Probably
Style.
was the first time. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you had done some composing of. Well, Wide World of Sports came before that.
That came before that. Well, I did Monday Night Football. It came before that too. Yeah.
Right, the original Monday Night Football one.
The original Monday Night
Yeah.
Football.
Oh, and one movie I recommended on this show was a strange film in black and white.
Oh, here we go. Another one of these.
Oh no, this is your friend Larry Pierce.
Oh, well, my friend Larry Pierce I'm going to see him for dinner. And
Oh, he's still
Yes.
around.
Yeah.
He's good. Boy, I like his stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Larry's one
Yeah.
of my closest friends.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
This
Love to talk to him.
starred Martin Sheen, Tony Mosente.
Everybody.
Yusente, yeah. Tony.
Jack Guilford.
What's his name?
Bo Bridges.
Bo Bridges, yes. And what's his name? Mike Kellen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ed
right.
McMahon, Brock Peters.
You have a fantastic memory for things. My God.
Yeah.
I tell you,
right.
this has come up on the show before.
Oh, really?
We had a whole
Yes.
a whole episode about the incident, a shorter
No kidding.
episode.
Yeah, I really like that
Well,
movie.
you should speak to Larry Pierce.
We should speak to Larry Pierce.
He just came in town, I think, today. We're going to see him.
We like Goodbye Columbus too.
Well, Larry really is one of my closest friends to this day. My very first picture in 1967 was with Larry Pierce. And that was the incident. And it was a black and white picture, and it was a very, very fine picture. And it was a picture of in black and white of two tough guys, Tony Musente and Marty Sheen, terrorizing a subway car. And it was such a frightening episode. In the 60s, there was a lot of stuff going on in subways.
Yeah, sure.
And I wrote the score, and it was a hit, but it was also, people were very bothered by it. It wasn't just a sit back, relaxed picture. It was very intense. My next picture was Barbarella. That was Dino Laurentiis.
Sure.
Was Raja Vadim.
Yeah, sure. Two characters, De Laurentiis and Roger Vadim.
Well, and actually that was a really nice situation for me because that was Bob Crew.
Yeah.
Great genius of the record.
4
business.
seasons.
And so we wrote a bunch of songs for that, and I did the score, and that was a lot of fun. That was a hit. That was a big hit around the world. And the next picture that I was up for was Goodbye Columbus. And so when Barbarella came out, the people from Paramount came out to see who this young fellow was in New York doing a big film. No one knew me because Bob had got me to do that. So that led to Goodbye Columbus, which was Larry. So I've done a lot of pictures with Larry. But I'll tell you what, in Barbarella, so many memorable things. When we were finished with the film, I had to go to France to teach Jane Fonda how to sing the theme of the song. And that was, as a young composer, and she and Raja Vadim lived in a farmhouse. And I spent a couple of days out there with him in the farmhouse in France, and teaching her how to sing the song. And he had a red Ferrari. And
He lived a good life.
Yeah, he lived
Roger
a good life.
Vadim.
Yeah, and that was the inspiration for me many years later to get a red Ferrari. For
Really?
the truth, yeah. I always remember that.
Were you going to cut a record with her, Jane Fonda? There was some talk of that.
Well,
to
we were supposed to do an album.
Yeah.
Bob Crew and I were supposed to go to Saint-Tropez, spend the summer, and do an album for Jane Fonda.
Amazing.
And she decided that she didn't want to sing,
Yeah. Barbarella's another movie that's come up on the show. What did you have any direct interaction with De Laurentiis, who's a larger than life figure?
Very, very little, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, very little,
Yeah.
But I worked with Vadim,
Yeah.
the director, which, in movies I work mostly with the directors.
Yeah.
Television is an odd thing, but mostly with the producers.
The interesting thing about the incident, too, and I read in your book that the way people reacted in movie theaters, that people were actually having negative, in some ways, very emotional negative reactions to the movie. People were tearing up movie theaters.
The incident.
Yeah, the incident.
Yeah, going back to this. Yes,
Yeah.
because there was such intensity. I wouldn't even want to repeat it on the air on this show, but there was such intensity. These two guys terrorizing couples and individuals, and it finally got to the point where Beau Bridges, and that was, I spoke to Beau recently about that. It was not his first film, but it was Tony Musente's first. Not Tony. It was Tony Musente's film. Also,
Martin Sheen.
Marty Sheen. It was his first film.
Yeah, everybody's good in it.
Everyone is great. Well,
Yeah.
Larry's
Very powerful.
Larry's
Very
a
powerful
fantastic
movie.
I'll tell you, they shot that on a subway set they built in the Bronx. At the I forget the name of the theater, but it's where Charlie Chaplin used to. And I was on the set, and it was just a subway.
The Biograph Theater?
Biograph Theater.
Yeah.
That was it. And the thing was shaking, and the lights were passing by, so you thought you were moving, and the whole thing was shot right there.
It's a wonderful movie, but it's an unsettling movie, and it still holds up. All
There
these years
was a
later.
screening just last year. That's why we got to talk with Marty Sheen, and everyone else was there, and it was honoring Larry, the screening, and it was part of the Turner Film Classics episode. At
Gilbert brought it up on a show. We've done so many of these,
Yeah,
and we used to just talk about favorite movies, and he brought that up one day, and we did a whole show about it.
That was one of those movies I just caught on TV years ago.
Yeah.
And it was like, it hooks you in.
The Blu-ray just came out. The Blu-ray just was released. They sent me a copy, yeah.
Well, if Larry wants to talk to us, we'd certainly love to.
Unfortunately, I don't know the theme song.
You're in luck.
I didn't write that.
No,
I didn't write that. No, I didn't.
Yeah,
No.
but another nice story in the book, too, is when you first got out to L.A., I think it was your first day in Hollywood, you met Henry Mancini.
Hollywood was a dream. Getting started, who could have imagined to get out and do big movies in Hollywood? I remember fantasizing, seeing at a Life magazine with Henry Mancini's story, and that he started off and he was in the Army. He played the piccolo, he played the piano, and he was an arranger, and they got to do movies. And of course, he was the king of Hollywood, and the nicest man in the world, by the way. So my very first day in Hollywood, I came out to do Goodbye Columbus, and Paramount sent a limousine for me and my family, and it was all totally impressive. Here we are again, a limousine going to an apartment they got. The next day, I showed up at the studio, and the guard said, all right, you go through the studio, you'll find left turn, right turn. In front of the music building, you'll find your parking space. And I pull up to my parking space, and to the left of me is Neil Hefti.
Oh, we love Neil Hefti.
And to the right of me is Henry Mancini. I thought I had died and gone to heaven.
How about that?
Between those two
How
guys.
about
Yeah,
that?
Neil Hefti was Odd Couple and How to Murder Your Wife.
Yeah,
Lots of good
he
stuff.
was a friend too. Neil was a great guy.
Batman.
He was
TV
great. Yeah.
show.
Wonderful composer, arranger.
And,
We love these guys.
And one thing you have in common with Henry Mancini is like you've gotten you past the green slime, and Henry Mancini, I think, made his living early on with these crappy sci-fi films.
I don't know that, but everyone gets started. Someone's got to get started someplace.
Of course.
And he was like this brilliant
Totally
composer.
brilliant, but as nice as he be. So he came into the commissary. I was there with the music editor, and the head of the music department kind of entertaining me, a new composer in town. My very first day in California. And Henry comes in, he says, they wave him over. Come on over here, Hank, I want you to meet someone. So we had lunch together. And he turns to me after a few minutes and he says, are you in the Motion Picture Academy? I said, no, I'd love to be. I don't know how it happens. He said, well, you need to have 3 pictures. How many pictures have you done? I said, well, this is my 3rd. I'm working on them. He said, good. He said, you have to have 2 people sign for you to bring. You can't apply. You have to be invited. He said, so I'll invite you. He said, I'm happy to do that. He said, we need new blood in the academy.
That's great.
Wow.
He said, do you know anyone else? I said, honestly, I don't know anyone. He said, I'll ask Elmer Bernstein.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
So my first day in Hollywood, I get invited to join the Motion Picture Academy.
How about that? Neil Hefti, Elmer Bernstein, and Henry Mancini all at once. And we should give us some context. I mean, you're a kid from New York who used to go to the pier and look out at the ships and hope that one day you would be able to see the world.
And dream about doing what I was doing, you bet.
And you're living it at this point.
Living the dream.
Yeah.
But honestly, I still am.
Good for you, Charles. Good perspective.
And I have had great parents, you know.
They supported this all along.
They supported my dream.
Yeah.
They didn't think it was in any way crazy. Like, what are you going?
I never heard that.
No,
I never heard that.
Nice.
And how easy. I mean, look, how many people grow up in the Bronx, a middle class family, and then want to go to Paris to study music. You know, not a lot of people. But my parents supported that. You know, and my dreams.
How long were you in Paris with the great Nadia? 2 years?
About 2 years. Yeah.
2 years. Yeah, and in the book, and people would tell our listeners to pick up the book, which again is called "Killing Me Softly: My Life in Music."
Thank you. Yeah.
The stories of you and your teacher, your mentor, Nadia. Fair to call her that?
I call her Mademoiselle Boulanger. You can call her Nadia because you don't know her.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. A woman, she was 72 years old when I was 18.
Yeah.
And I came home when I was 21. A woman a French woman of that age should be called Madame.
Yes.
Her mother was Madame, so she was Mademoiselle.
I noticed that in the book that you referred to her as.
So we all called her Mademoiselle, you know.
And who else did she teach besides you? We were talking outside.
Well, 40 years before me, Aaron Copland was the
Copland.
first. Yeah, but people came from around the world, and some of the great composers around the world. Ailey Carter and
Michel Legrand.
Michel Legrand, yes.
Philip Glass.
Philip Glass. I once was talking to Michel Legrand about that. And he said, "Well, I was there with her for 6 years or something." Well, he was also French, you know. He was
he had a leg up on you.
he was there anyway.
But
however, wait a second. Michel Legrand's one of the great.
Oh, of course, we just lost him.
The great, yes,
Yeah.
we did. Yeah. One of the greatest musicians, composers ever.
And Quincy Jones.
And Quincy's a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, Quincy. And you know, when I get together with Quincy, we talk about Boulanger.
You do. That's nice.
Yeah, we speak a little French also sometimes.
I was telling Gilbert, you know, part of the fun of reading the book is you're talking about I'm a kid who kept kosher, and suddenly I'm in Paris, and there's food everywhere, and you didn't, you know.
I didn't know what to do.
Suddenly a new world.
The first day, we hooked up. I think we were on a chartered flight with a bunch of us going to for the summers, the summer school Fontainebleau in the Palace of Fontainebleau. That was Napoleon's summer palace.
Wow.
And built by Francois I. But anyway, I hooked up with some other people going to Paris, part of the school, and we had a week to spend in Paris before the school started at Fontainebleau. So we all kind of stayed together because no one knew anyone or anything. We walked together, we took a train together, and we had meals together. And I didn't know anything about food that didn't come from my own house, frankly.
Right.
You know, corned beef sandwiches I knew. And every night I would have steak because I could understand the word steak. All the other things, rabbit, mouton, lamb, cornichon. Anyway, so after a while, after about the third day, there was steak tartare. And I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. That's probably steak with the sauce.
Tartar sauce.
So I asked for the steak tartare, well done.
Right.
Which they all laughed because steak tartare is raw steak.
Right, exactly.
And we were talking, because we're both fans of Get Smart, that you wrote a song for one of our guests, Barbara Feldon.
Was she here?
We had Barbara Feldon.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
She lives a few blocks from here.
I didn't write the songs.
You conducted and arranged that
I
one.
arranged the songs, yes.
Right.
And that was for David Susskind.
99.
Agent 99. Yeah, we had a song called Agent 99.
Yeah. I found it online. It's on YouTube.
Is that so?
Yes.
And Dan Melnick, now that was his partner. And Dan Melnick, during that recording session, put his arm on my shoulder and said, "Hey, kid, it sounds like you could do pictures." I was an arranger, and I said, "I sure would love to." And then I ended up getting a picture, one of my first pictures for David Susskind.
So that was a turning point.
It was.
Yeah.
Because you know what? There have been a lot of turning points, man, I'll be honest with you. People have asked me that question. There's
Sure.
a lot. I got started, I guess, I got a lot of starts, you know, and one of my starts is working for Skish Henderson on The Tonight Show.
Yeah, tell us about that, because there's also a famous Tonight Show episode that falls into that story.
Oh, I was there.
Yeah. Yes.
There's one of them, when you see like some of the greatest funny moments for Johnny Carson or television.
It's an iconic moment.
Is with iconic moment, Ed Ames throwing the tomahawk. And I was with Ed Ames that day.
Incredible.
And he sang "Try to Remember" and one other song, and I did the arrangements. And so in the the show tapes in the afternoon, and we did the show. I did rehearse the band, and then he played an Indian on Daniel Boone. he was no more an Indian than you or me. But that was he played the role. So
forgot his character's
So
name.
they wheel out this big backboard of a wooden thing with a kind of a carving or a cutout of an outline of a sheriff of a cowboy, and they handed the tomahawk. He never threw a tomahawk. Said, "Here, throw it." He says, "I don't know how to throw." So he just naturally pointed the point of it towards the screen, the backdrop, and threw it. And 10 times in a row, it kept bouncing off. And one of the stagehands came to him and said, "Here, turn it the other way so that the point is facing you." He threw it once, it stuck in, and they marked the spot. And so he sang his 1 or 2 songs, and then they handed him the tomahawk. He threw it, and he had no idea that he was going to circumcise this cowboy.
Right.
You know? And he got, you can't see it because it's black and white TV.
Yeah.
He got all red in the face.
Oh,
he was so embarrassed. And all he wanted to do was get out and remove this thing. And Johnny, who's, comic genius.
Sure.
You watch it, he keeps pulling it back.
Yeah.
He tries to make his way over there.
He's sharpening the two things.
He's
waiting for his line.
He milked that joke as much as he can milk it,
And Carson said to him, it's okay, you can't hurt him any worse.
Right, he said, first he said, "I didn't know you were Jewish."
Yeah.
Oh, yes, right. Yeah.
Yes.
What did you do with Skitch and on the Carson show?
I
that
used
was a
to
turning
do,
point,
first of all, original themes as the show went on the air and off the air. Band, not the Tonight Show theme,
Right,
but
of course.
They play music. I used to write some of those themes. The show went on the air, off the air, for the big band with Doc. Doc was the trumpet player.
Right, of course.
Later on, I did an album with Doc, actually, a whole album with Doc. And then every now and then, Skitch would do a separate piano arrangement where he played the piano of the band, and I would arrange that for him too. So he really was great.
Now, one thing we love on this show, and we played it a few times, and that's the Nairobi Trio.
Oh, yeah. Earlier in your career, I made a note that you did an arrangement of the Nairobi Trio piece from Ernie Kovacs.
As a young arranger, if you're dreaming about being an arranger, all you want to do is write something and hear it. So you can put the notes on paper, but until the trumpets play it back and the saxophones, you have no idea how it's going to sound. The guy who was the head of the jazz band when I was a freshman, maybe a sophomore in high school, we had a fantastic jazz band. His name was Joel Greenwald, actually. And one day, he was a trumpet player that I knew professionally because he had worked the same place you mentioned, the Catskill Mountains. He had been in that same hotel 2 years before. And he said to me, "Well, if you want to write something for the big band, we'll play it." And so...
That makes Gilbert so happy. Yeah. We're picturing the chimps.
So what I loved about that, there was, if you remember, people who remember, there were 3 gorillas.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. There were gorillas.
And this to this. You remember, I'm sure.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And while this music was playing, the 3 gorillas were standing, and one gorilla had a big stack of blocks, which one by one he would pass to the guy in the middle. And he'd pass block after block. And the 3rd guy just stood, didn't do anything. That was the whole bit.
And then one had like a drumstick or something that he would hit the other one on the head with.
That was Ernie Kovacs, right? Yeah, that was his show. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a comic genius.
100 years this year of Ernie Kovacs' birth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I will say he would have been 100, but that's unlikely. I love your career at that point, too, because you're bouncing around and you're doing so many interesting things. You did commercials. You did those the Parker Brothers commercials.
I did a lot of commercials,
Yeah, and the White Owl cigars.
When the values go up, 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 and the prices go down, 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 Robin Hall in season will show you the reason. Low overhead, low overhead.
Yay! Oh, man.
Hilarious,
I think I'm going to regret this hour.
Hilarious. No, our listeners are going to eat this up.
Are there any other famous ones like that?
You remember the White Owl cigars?
You know what? I have to confession, honest. I didn't write that song. I only arranged it.
Oh,
you arranged
but
it.
I arranged it 100 different ways. And we had a Christmas thing. I don't know. Remember, I did all the commercials.
Like, I think Barry Manilow said in an interview.
Oh, he did a lot of jingles.
Yeah, because he had a history of writing jingles.
He did, yeah.
And that he said, now I can't write a song that's not catchy.
Oh, well, that's true. Barry's a great writer. Great writer.
Another thing you wrote then that Gilbert and I are interested in too is game show music for Goodson and Todman. And I like the story in the book about you about what a hard sell. Was it Todman? The other guy, Mark Goodson.
No, Todman.
Mark Goodson.
Todman used to come in to say hello to me.
Yeah.
They had an office on the Seagrams building on the 30th floor. They had the whole 30th floor, and there was a big conference room. And I got to do the shows, 3 or 4 of the shows.
Tell the Truth you did, and
What's My Line?
Match Game and What's My Line.
And it would always start off with them, Mark coming out, saying hello to me, and then I'd go into this room to play my little theme. Now if you do something, you make a demo, you synthesize it, it sounds good. I would just have this little, and it wasn't even 88 keys. It must have been 66 keys. I don't know why. There was plenty of room for a full piano in that room. And I would sit down, and Mark would assemble all of his staff.
No pressure.
Including Gene Rayburn. You remember Gene Rayburn?
Yes, sure.
And they'd bring them all, come on, let's hear the new theme for the show. And I sit down, and in my head, I'd hear trumpets and flutes and piccolos by him. And I would play that through, and Mark would go around. He used to stand by the piano and lean over this piano, this little upright piano, and his left hand, he had a big cigar, and he'd smoke. And I'd finish this little theme, and he'd turn to each one of the people in the room and say, "What'd you think? What'd you think?" But no one knew what he thought, so no one wanted to say what they thought.
Oh, one of those.
So they would say, "Oh, nice beat, it's nice rhythm, it's catchy," whatever they would say. And finally, Mark would turn and to me, he said, "All right, let's hear it again." I go back. And somewhere along the way, while I was playing, I would see his foot tapping. And when I see his foot tapping, I knew I had him.
You had him.
And then I had him,
He was a hard sell.
Yeah.
I think Dick DeBartolo was probably in that room. Because he was a writer on Match Game, and he used to punch a clock in that Seabrams building.
And how did Foul Play come about?
Well, I did a lot of work for Tom Miller and Eddie Milkus. I did most of their television shows, Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley. And they were good friends and wonderful guys. And Foul Play was their second movie. The first one I didn't do. It was Henry Mancini actually did that one. But Colin Higgins was the writer.
Sure. Harold and Maude.
Yeah. Right. He didn't direct that first one, Silver Streak.
Right, it was Arthur Hiller.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a terrific movie.
Yeah.
And Henry, of course, always did a great job. The next picture, he wrote a trilogy. The second was Foul Play, which is a big hit. And the third one never was
Billy
made.
Barty.
Yeah, Billy Barty's in Foul Play. You
the
bet.
third one was the one that never was made. It's called The Man Who Lost Tuesday. Never made it.
Oh.
And Colin died not too many years after that.
Yeah.
I worked with him again with 9 to 5.
And he made Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, too.
Yes, and actually, I wrote a song for him for Burt Reynolds, which didn't get used, by the way. But
that's in the book.
It's in the book.
Yeah, Dolly upstaged you.
Yeah, well, it's okay. Dolly's a great songwriter.
Yeah.
And she was in the movie. She felt that was a spot. And no complaints, But so when Colin did his first directing, he asked me to do it, the movie, and then I did the remaining pictures with him.
And now I got to put you on the spot yet again because that's my job.
Charles, you're a sport.
Do I have a choice?
I want to sing the great song you wrote.
Which one is that?
Ready to Take a Chance Again.
You do?
Yes, I do. With you playing, oh my God.
He's like he went to heaven.
You remind... Oh. Sorry?
He'll tell you when to come in.
I'm giving you a good introduction.
You remind me I live in a shell, safe from the past. I'm doing okay, but not very well.
Me too. Not doing very well.
No.
No jolts, no surprises. No crisis arises. My life goes along as it should. It's all very nice, but not very good. And I'm ready to take a chance again. Ready to put my love on the line with you. You're living with nothing to show for it. You get what you get when you go for it. And I'm ready to take a chance again. Ready to take a chance again with you. When she left me
He knows the whole thing.
in all my despair, I just held on. My hopes were all gone till I found you there. And I'm ready to take a chance again. Ready to put my love on the line with you. You're living with nothing to show for it. You get what you get when you go for it. And I'm ready to take a chance again. Ready to take a chance again with you. With you.
Barry Manilow, eat your heart out, right?
You know, we used to sing it on the show a cappella, and I said to Dara, now we'll never get Charles Fox. And now I'm going to say, now we'll never get Barry.
Barry's
Because Charles is here.
Barry's a good sport.
So you wrote that song.
I did.
With Norman.
Gimbel, yeah.
Great Norman.
That
Gimbel.
is a terrific song.
Thank you.
And that's one of those songs, like a lot of songs that Barry Manilow made famous with hits, is one of those songs where people don't want to say how much they like the song. Yeah, there are these songs that you feel like, oh, I want to pick something really, something by Captain Beefheart.
You know, there's an episode my grandson watches. I think it's a cartoon show at night. It's kind of a hip cartoon show, The Americans or something. I don't know what. That they did a whole episode on these 4 or 5 guys that sit around and they said, yeah, I don't want to sing any Barry. Which songs and which singers? And they said Barry Manilow. Yeah, I don't care for his songs that much.
Oh, it's Family Guy.
Family Guy.
Yes.
Family Guy.
Yes.
And well, how about Mandy? Yeah, that one's not too bad. Yeah, it's just the other songs. How about Ready to Take a Chance? Oh, I like. And they all started singing.
Of
Ready
course.
to Take,
That's because Seth's a Barry Manilow fan, the guy that runs that show.
And-
That's
Yeah, he's got to be.
Yeah.
Oh, and then
Barry
they,
Manilow, I have to say, is one of the nicest men. One of the greatest. If you ever saw his show, you never forget
I've
it.
seen his show.
Yeah.
I saw him outdoors, Forest Hills.
I saw a show too. I'm a definite Barry Manilow fan.
We're fans.
And Family Guy, then they get like little girls and they say, oh, we have to see him. And then Barry Manilow's there singing to Quagmire.
Yeah.
And he says, you came and you gave without taking, he sings. And Quagmire goes, I would never take from you, Barry.
I think when you talk to Seth next again, Ask him if he's a Barry Manilow
I'm
fan, because
sure
I'm sure he is, because it's turned up a lot. I saw him. He would take out. He never took himself seriously in those live shows. He would take out the accordion and play "Lady of Spain," and then he would finish and say, "I'd like to see Billy Joel do that." When I saw him at the,
but see, that's what I was talking about. He's one of those guys. People are embarrassed to say they like his songs, but everybody loves
Not the people who come to see his shows.
Oh, my God.
Not the people who count.
And not the people who buy records.
Yeah.
Barry, he's one of the greatest entertainers, one of the most popular, successful singers ever.
Yeah, I loved his show.
Was that a fun film to score? Because it's a comedy, but it's also a Hitchcock homage.
You know what? I've done a few of those kind of things. I've done a number of movies that they're dramatic, they're sometimes suspenseful, and yet comedy at the same time. Like 9 to 5 was a little like that.
Sure.
You know? I did a picture called Trench Coat too.
Oh, I know that picture. Robert Hayes?
Yeah, Robert Hayes.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes. And so I remember talking with Colin Higgins before the picture was shot. And the end of the movie was Goldie Hawn and Chevy Chase making his first movie.
Sure.
Trying to stop the Pope from being killed. He was going to, there was a...
Just sort of an homage of The Man Who Knew Too Much.
It was.
Yeah.
It was, definitely, yeah. Colin was very quick to say that. He was a real fan of Hitchcock. And so it's going to start with the beginning of the Mikado. And then we're going to see... we're going to see the Goldie and Chevy trying to get to the opera house and stop this murder from about to happen. But they kept getting stopped by traffic and a singing cowboy star and all kinds of fun stuff, and 2 Japanese people in a taxi singing "Chop Chop" something. What was it was a famous television show. I don't remember. Kojak. Chop Chop.
They
You remember
kept
that?
right.
Anyways, and we kept. So I do a piece of music, and then we cut to the opera house. And every time we have to have the opera house more in progress. So we listed 5 or 6 or 7 pieces that the opera would have to sing. And I went to New York and I recorded the New York City Opera Company doing those numbers. And then, and then when the picture was finished, I wrote the music that led into each operatic moment, so that in the end, the design was, at the end of this long 10-minute scene, it would play like one piece of music, mine, and then Arthur Sullivan, then mine, then Sullivan, So that was pretty challenging.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's a good film.
Oh, it's a great film.
It's a good film. And now I'm going to go back and watch it again and just listen to the music. Yeah.
I did have a lot of fun. Yeah.
Absolutely.
He was another one of our former guests.
Who's that?
Chevy
Chevy.
Chase.
We had Chevy.
Oh, Chevy.
In fact, he sang "Ready to Take a Chance Again" to Chevy.
Yeah.
So I work with him on the European Vacation.
Sure. Was that Amy Heckerling?
Amy.
I think it was. We had Amy here too.
Yes.
We're following your career, Charles.
What took you so long to get me?
We're stalking you. Since you're talking about, this is a fun story too, since you're talking about how you were pitching in the room to Mark Goodson, the story of you pitching the Love Boat theme to Aaron Spelling.
Yeah, that was unique.
Yeah.
That was unique. I've told that story many times.
It's fun.
I mean, along the way, when I played new songs for people, sometimes they had some way to hear it in the room, a cassette machine. Sometimes they had nothing. I'd have sometimes 4 or 5 producers going into my little car, listening to something in my car, and I played themes over the phone for people.
Yeah, that's interesting too.
But that particular one, Love Boat, there was a movie called Love Boat. There was a 2-hour movie, and I did a few of them. And then they decided to make it as a series, and I said it would be great, Aaron, if we got a song. He said, who would you guys? I said, Paul Williams. We just worked together. He's fantastic. So he said, great. So we wrote a song, and I made a proper demo, with singers and band, and I brought it into Aaron's office for him to hear the demo. And I walked in, he kind of rubbed his 2 hands together and saying gleefully, "Oh boy, what'd you bring me?" Because I'd worked with him before.
Yeah.
I said, "I think we have a good song, Aaron. So, do you have a tape machine? I could play the demo." And he looked around the room and he said, "No, we don't have a tape machine here." I said, "Okay."
Why do they have a tape machine?
I said,
"No." Television producer's office.
I said, "No problem. Cassette machine. I come prepared." I said, "A cassette machine would be fine." Got on the horn with the secretary. And he said, could you bring in a cassette machine? She said, I'll have to find one. And she came back a few minutes later and said, I'm sorry, Mr. Spelling, there's no cassette machine. So I said, look, Aaron, we're on the lot of 20th Century Fox. There's pianos all over. I used to go to Mel Brooks' office sometimes to play songs for Goldie Hawn for that movie that I did with the
Duchess and the Dirtwater Fox.
Yeah.
Good movie.
And I wrote with Sammy Kahn.
Yeah.
And I said, so there's pianos all over. He said, all right, let me check with my secretary. She came back a few minutes later and said, I'm sorry, Mr. Spelling, there's no pianos available in the lot. So I look at him and I kind of shrug my shoulder, where do we go now? And he looked at me and I said, all right, Aaron, here goes. Love, exciting and new. Come aboard. We all welcome you, the love boat. And that's how I sang the song.
You just sang
it to him right there.
Acapella, snapping my
Snapping
fingers.
your
and
fingers.
you sold it with no music.
And you know what he said?
What?
I like it.
I think he owed you that at that point.
I like it. Yeah, that was a unique story. That never happened.
So talk about working with Paul. Paul's been on this show. We all adore him. We were talking about him outside. You did One-on-One first, the Robbie Benson movie.
We did a bunch of songs for One-on-One. Paul's wonderful. I love Paul.
He's a gent.
I love him as a creative. I told you, I think, before, I was a fan of his before we ever got to work together. We're good friends, and I love him, and we have fun working together. And actually, I just got to tomorrow, not literally, but we have written a new song together for a movie coming out. It'll be out in October. It's an HBO picture.
Exciting.
But it'll be in theaters first. And it's a documentary picture called The Bronx, USA. And we wrote a song called The Bronx. And Robert Klein sang it.
Oh, great.
He sang it. He's in the picture. Interviews a lot of people from the Bronx, including me, including Colin Powell, by the way, from the Bronx,
Yes.
and other people. And then we needed, Paul wrote a rap lyric that I asked him to do, and it was great. And we got Donald Webber Jr., who right now is playing Burr in Hamilton, but he was Hamilton on Broadway here for a while. And then I said, I also need a background group like the Four Seasons, Frankie Valli's group. And anyway, we ended up with the cast of
Hamilton.
No.
Oh.
Jersey Boys.
Jersey Boys.
I said I need a group like the Jersey Boys.
Right. I was still on Hamilton.
Yeah. So we got the four guys from Jersey Boys. So they sang. So that's this record that we have. So then they went out to the streets of New York on the east side, Bronx, and they shot all the people and the singers and everything on the streets of the Bronx. And it's a lot of fun. So that's the opening of the movie. And the end of the movie, the song we wrote, The Bronx, we had everyone, the whole cast on stage with the band, with myself at the piano, playing this as an end title. So Paul and I are very excited
Great
about
that you guys are working together.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he was on the show, I was singing his songs to him in his voice.
In his voice?
Yes. Why are there so many songs about rainbows?
He's doing a Paul impression too, Paul. I love those songs. I mean, not only we've only just begun, but even some of the lesser known ones, like "Won't Last a Day Without You," and
I don't know how lesser known that is. That's a big hit song.
Yeah, but
and
we had a hit together though called "My Fair Share." That
yes,
was with Seals and Crofts.
Seals and Crofts.
the one I always liked of his, and I sang it to him there, was "Nice to Be Around."
Nice to be around from Cinderella Liberty. Yeah,
that was a beautiful song. That was John Williams music. Yeah, beautiful song. But we started to work together. We've been friends ever since, and he's great.
He's a giant.
Yeah,
he really is.
Not only that, but he's been the president of ASCAP.
Yep,
and
he does a lot for songwriters. We should point that out.
Very nice.
He's done a lot for songwriters for music. Yeah.
Absolutely.
He came to the screening of my documentary, and afterwards, he threw his arms around me and said, "I love you even more now."
And he took us to a nice lunch.
Yes,
you, me, and Dara.
Terrific guy.
Let's talk about Norman, your collaborations with Norman Gimbel, and these three wonderful songs that charted. The Croce song, "I Got a Name," and also "Killing Me Softly," which we have to talk about.
Jim Croce's song, we did a picture called "The Last American Hero" with Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, I know the picture.
And we wrote the song. And we were kind of late in getting the song going with the film, and so over the phone we called Jim Croce. which is kind of unusual. You usually send a demo. We called him, and he heard the song over the phone and said he would sing it. So I got his key. I still hadn't met him. I got his key by listening to his record. He had a new song coming up on the charts called Operator.
Sure.
And he was a new, really not that well-known singer yet, before any of his hits. Operator just coming up on the charts. And we thought his voice not only matched our song, but matched the character, Jeff Bridges' character in the film. So I got his key by just listening to some of his records. I made a big record, orchestral background, strings and everything, at 20th Century Fox Soundstage in Hollywood. And I brought it with me to work with Jim. And when I got to meet him for the first time in his producer's office, he said, let me hear that song, right? I only heard it on the phone. I knew I'd have to sing it. So I played the song and I sang it for him. And he was touched, and he said he knew he'd have to do the song because he knew it reminded him of his father, who died before fulfilling his own dreams. And then he said, can I play a song for you? I said, sure. So he played a new song he had just written called I Have to Say I Love You in a Song.
Love that one.
So I always look back on that relationship, two songwriters.
Yeah, it's nice.
Songs for each other. Many years later, I'll tell you another story. Many years later, Lena Horne was doing her Broadway show, Lena Horne Broadway. And Alan Bergman one day said to me, a great songwriter and a friend, he said, if you want to hear a great version of that song, I got a name. He says, go to New York and see Lena. Well, I couldn't do that, but then she came out to California. I saw her there. And she came out and she started singing her, Stormy Weather, her
sure.
signature number. And she sang about a minute of that, and then she went right into I Got a Name. And she did her own interpretation, her own style, and it was fantastic. And she started talking about her father in the song and about how it just got it all revved up. And the audience reacted to her by cheering her. They got up and cheering in the middle of the second, myself included. So I didn't know Lena Horne then, so I didn't go backstage and planned to do that. But the next day I sent her a bouquet of flowers. And I said, from a grateful composer.
Oh, nice.
And she sent me back a letter, which I can pretty well quote because I have it framed.
It's in the book.
It's in the book, yeah. Actually, I think it's in the book. And it basically says to the composer of my favorite song, thank you for writing my favorite song. You don't know how much meaning it has for me because every time I sing it, I think of my father.
Isn't that something?
So that's the interest. And actually...
people connected to it that way.
It's interesting, yes. And a lot of people did, yeah. Connected through and I've seen it many times since.
Croce was a big talent, and of course left us
he was,
early.
He died way too young. He was such a.
I love those songs. Rapid Roy, the Star. We talk about how people don't write story songs anymore.
He wrote story.
He wrote
songs.
a lot of story songs. Rapid Roy, that stock car boy. Of course, you don't mess around with Jim. Bad Leroy Brown.
Yeah,
and the love songs that he wrote.
Time in a Bottle doesn't get any more beautiful.
Great. I have to say, I Love You in a Song is beautiful.
And Frank and I were talking about how Roberta Flack came to sing that.
She was flying from Los Angeles to New York. And, those days, 1972, 73, people didn't carry Walkman, didn't have their own music CDs and MP3s that we have now. So we had this record that was programmed on American Airlines. And Roberta was with that song, and she was flying from Los Angeles. She had just done a concert with Quincy Jones. She was flying home, and she heard that song, and she's a real musician, Roberta. She took a pencil and paper and started to write notes and the lyrics. And she got to New York. She said she listened to it for a few times. She called Quincy Jones and said, "Quincy, how do I meet Charles Fox?" So Quincy called me. No, she called me actually, and I was. Quincy gave him numbers of mine where to reach me. And one day I was walking through the Paramount Music Library, and someone handed me a telephone and said, "Here, this is for you." And I can still remember it in my ear because Roberta Flack said, "I didn't." She had just won the Grammy Award for Best Record, Best Song.
Oh, first time ever I saw your face.
And she said, "Hi, this is Roberta Flack, and we haven't met, but I'm going to sing your songs." And I had to take this phone away from me or look at the phone. Am I really hearing this right? Anyway, so we met in Quincy Jones' office when she came out to California. And that was the start of it.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Beautiful piece of work.
They used the song in About a Boy. And it was funny, the way they used it gets back to what we were talking about before. Like the whole thing is, no, he can't sing that. It'll be embarrassing. Yeah. They'll beat him up. They'll laugh at him. And then when he's singing it, it looks like, oh, this is pathetic. And then when Hugh Grant joins him and does the backup, you go, wow, this is really nice.
You know, it was a fun performance of that. We've had probably about 2,000 people record this song.
How about that?
Yeah.
I was reading an interview with the director of that movie, and he said he chose the song because they needed a song that was so nakedly vulnerable or so emotionally open that kids could make fun of him for singing it. But it also had to be a song that when you really listened to it was cool. It had to.
So speaking about that, Quentin Tarantino made a movie that he used. I got a name in a couple of years ago. I can't think of the name. It was a cowboy picture, and
was it Django Unchained?
Django Unchained, and he does a whole moment, like a 2-minute, where Django meets the other guy. I forget the situation, and the two go riding off together to be partners. And he scored the whole scene with Jim Croce singing that song. And I didn't know it. No one called me to tell me that.
They don't call you. I was going to ask you. They don't call you to get the permission, the blessing.
Well, they do with some songs. "Kill Me Softly," yes, yeah.
Yes.
So I saw Quentin Tarantino at the Oscars that year. And I went over to say hello and to introduce myself because I never met him. And I thanked him for doing it. I said, I love the way you used my song. He said, oh, that's your song. He said, you know, I found that song listening on YouTube with you singing.
Oh, that's right. That clip's online.
So I said, well, you made a smart move by getting Jim Croce, not me. You know? But here's the nice thing. I said, you know what? I was going to send you a note to tell you how much I liked you using my song in that picture. He said, if you send me the note still, I'll keep it.
How about that?
That's something, so I wrote him a little letter, yeah.
How about that?
Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah. I got a quick question about, and we jump all over the place, but the Charles Fox Singers, since we were talking about Love American Style, it started out with the Cowsills.
Started off with the Cowsills. They'd sang Love American Style for me.
Right.
The second year, Paramount asked me to replace them because of business arrangement, whatever that was. Those days, there was the Henry Mancini singer.
Right, so you decided there were
So someone said, well, it wasn't ever decided. Someone said, what should we call the group? You can call them tomorrow. I don't know.
Right.
So I said, we need a name. He said, well, you had the Cowsills. Would give it a name. Give it your name. So I said, okay, Charles Fox Singers. But the truth is, there was no Charles Fox.
Right. Were they the Ron Hicklin singers?
Well, Ron Hicklin was in his group of guys. They did most of my shows.
I did a little digging.
And never take anything away from anyone. You know, Ron is great. His singers were great. They did most of my shows, Wonder Woman, all those things.
Sure.
Laverne and Shirley. No, Laverne and Shirley, they didn't do that. Was Cindy Greco.
Cindy Greco.
See, I promise I won't sing these songs.
It's
but
too late for that promise. We're way beyond that now.
If we could hear a snippet of
what?
some of these great, like Love American Style.
Love, 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 American style, truer than the red, white, and blue. Love, American style, that's me and you. And then Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. Saturday, what a day. Rocking all week with you and give us any chance, we'll take it. Read us any rule or break it. We're gonna make our dreams come true. Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman. The Love Boat. Anyway.
Oh, my God.
I love the way they just flow right into each other.
Well, I just did that.
Yeah.
It doesn't usually, you know. And actually, I didn't sing the love, I just said the word, but anyway.
Fantastic.
That was great.
You know, I got a question here. Charles, I asked a couple of musicians. I said, friends of mine, I said, do you have questions for Charles Fox? And my friend Shark, who's a musician in Los Angeles, said, please ask him if he ever was rushed and wrote something 5 minutes before he had to play it for the producer or a creator of a show.
Most of them were that way. You know what?
Just come up right on the spot under pressure?
Honestly, Hollywood works that way. You don't get a whole lot of extra time to do things. Not quite that. But the truth is, you always get up and have to do the work and show it off and present it in a nice light and all that. And to tell you the truth, with all my movies, I always like to play the whole score for people at the piano. And director comes to my house, and I played I did a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the only movie I ever directed.
Oh, Christmas in Connecticut, right?
Connecticut.
Yeah.
And when I went to work with him, when I met him the first time, I went to his office, and he said, I'm not going to imitate his voice. You all know how he sounds. He said, I never work with music. I don't know how to work with music. I said, that's great. I said, let's talk about the picture. Let me worry about the notes. So that made it easier for him. Then he came to my house, and I played the score for him at the piano, and he got it, and he became real astute. He was really smart in terms of hearing things and knowing when music, where it would help, where it wouldn't. But I mean, there's always a challenge, but it's simply what I do.
I've heard you say one of the thrills of your career is sitting in the theater for the first time and hearing the score or the music come up full and watching everything.
Well, not even full. I went to the dubbing sessions of every one of my movies, because it wasn't just enough to write the music. I had to get it into the picture at the right level. Could have been loud, could have been as soft as anything. It was a moment. It's a matter of enhancing the moment of the undercut of the story to what you're trying to bring out. The emotional qualities, the dramatic qualities, even. And I always felt that if and directors expected me to do that, so I used to go and sit right next to the music mixer on the dubbing stage, and very often I'd move the dials myself, the faders.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when it's finally finished, by the way, I didn't always get my way. Sometimes the director wanted a lot of sound effects that would wipe out the music. But I mean, it's a collaborative business, and the director has the final say. It's just that simple. So you work with the director.
Of course.
And when I sit in the theater and hear everything's just to the right level, whether it had to be full screen or this part, a little oboe behind a delicate moment, yes, it's very satisfying for me.
And I'm going to ask you, who are your favorite? We talked about Neil Hefti, Henry Mancini. You were friends with the great Jerry Goldsmith. Who were your favorite composer?
Well, Jerry was certainly one of my favorites, a fantastic composer and a good friend of mine. And
we love those scores. Omen.
Jerry was
Planet of the Apes.
So I will tell you that when Jerry was sick near the end, when he was still functioning, but he was ill, and he had 2 concerts. I conducted for him from time to time, not on his recording sessions, but in concerts. He asked me to do a concert for him. One time I was busy finishing one of my ballets, my Zorro ballet, and he called me and he said he had 2 concerts coming up in. One in England and one in Japan. He loved working at the London Symphony, LSO. And he said he didn't think he could do both that and Japanese concerts. Would I do the Japanese concert for him? So I couldn't say no to Jerry. So I said, of course I would. So in the daytime, I was writing my music, orchestrating my music at that point. In the evening, I was studying his scores. So when I stand in front of a 100-piece orchestra,
how about that?
I know what the music is. So we actually did the first time ever episode, suite of The Omen. I had a 100-voice chorus.
Wow!
I had, and it was the first time it was ever put together, and I conducted it in Japan with the Kanagawa Philharmonic, in Tokyo and in Yokohama.
So he would certainly be on the short list of your favorite film composers.
Personally, I think he's one of the greatest composers ever. And I always say about Jerry, he's a great film composer, but more than great, he was a great American composer who devoted his life to film. John Williams, a fantastic composer,
Sure.
There are a lot of Michael Giacchino, a young composer.
He's been on this show.
Has he?
Yes, he has.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. He's a good friend, too.
Yes,
and a charming guy. And there's a lot of talented
I told him you were
people.
coming on.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
One thing I always think about whenever there's a composer is it's the sign of a bad composer and a bad director, for that matter, when music comes on and I find myself going, okay, I'm supposed to be sad now. I'm supposed to be invigorated. Do you find yourself going, okay, I got to work against certain, you find...
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you play against what's on the scene. Sure, there can be a happy scene between two people talking, but really what she's thinking about is something else. A little bit of underneath the skin, you know, she's thinking about a moment they had. So you have that control as a composer. You certainly want to play a design. You have a design for how you're going to treat the music, and you usually go through it with the director, and it's a very collaborative thing. But there are certainly times that you want to play against the film. If it's a happy moment, you may play sad. If it's a sad moment, you may play it up. It's all a matter of what you're trying to let the audience understand and feel at that moment as part of the grand design of the film. And I mean, I did a film, it was a television film once with a great director, Lamont Johnson. And it was about a woman who had 200 names, 200 alter egos. And she had suffered horribly as a child and didn't know that it was called 200 Voices or something like that. 1,000 Voices, something. It's a true story. And the director said to me, now, you know, I want to be very simple because this woman has these noises in her head. And so just not much music and very sparse, very simple. And I went ahead and I wrote the most busy score I've ever written my whole life. And he came over to my house, and I think I did most of it on the synthesizer in my studio. And he came to my house, and I said, Lamont, I wrote some of the busiest music I ever wrote. I said, but what I played what is in her head. So I wasn't playing what the audience reaction was. I played what this woman was hearing in her head.
Interesting.
And he loved it. So you have to take a chance.
Of course.
Do what you think is right, you know.
I also found it interesting that you don't like TV theme songs that explain the show. You prefer something that sets a tone.
Right.
Or creates a context.
Right. So I did a show called The Paper Chase.
Sure.
With John Houseman.
Yeah.
And when I went to do the show with him, John Houseman said, so I'm going to start the show with narration. It was like the movie, The Paper Chase. I'm going to start with narration where I talk about the kids coming to school, and they're going to learn this, they're going to learn that, and they come from different countries, different parts of the United States, and I'm going to make a lawyer out of you. They said, what do you think about putting music behind that? I said, for the main title, you absolutely should have music behind it. He said, okay. I said, as a matter of fact, I have an idea. Since it's the same narration over and over, I don't want to tell them it's boring, but since it's the same narration over and over, it's the same story every week. I said, why don't we start with the narration, and then we'll go into a song explaining just those feelings, about the feelings of doing something new in your life, something frightening, something a little exhilarating, what it's like to be a first-year law student. And then we'll see the kids get on buses and trains coming to Harvard, and when they go into the huge auditorium where you're speaking, we'll cut back to you and your narration. And he waited a beat, and he said, you want to cut out my narration? I said, well, you know, the song would really work better. Anyway, we ended up with a song as I wrote it. And I actually, of all my shows, it was the only one that got a lot of awards and nominations, myself included. But it lasted 1 year. It didn't.
Yeah.
But then it went to syndication, and he took over, and he went back to his narration.
Oh, he changed it in
song.
syndication.
Yeah.
I was thinking, and for one of our short episodes, we should do all the shows that had theme songs telling the story.
All the Sherwood Schwartz theme songs.
I didn't want to say that, but that's true.
Yeah, they all
every
explain
Miller
the show.
Boyette was also
There were a
like
handful of them. Yeah.
Well, I work with Tom Miller and those guys are great. I did a show with them. They pretended to be the Hogan family.
Yeah, sure.
And I wrote a song that Roberta Flack sang for me.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I'll tell you a song I love is the one from the other side of the mountain. Richard's Window.
Richard's Window.
Beautiful.
Thank you. We were nominated for that.
Beautiful piece of music. Yeah. And a good film.
It was a very good film. Well, again, Larry Pierce directed it, and my good friend Ed Feldman was the producer.
People should see it.
So I'll tell you a couple of things, if I may, if you want to know about
do.
that. Sure. All right.
Yes.
So I did one of the most, I do a lot of varied things, as you know. One of the things I did is very exciting to me recently. I started off my career in Latin music. You may know that. I played...
You were Carlos Zorro.
I were Carlos Zorro. I want to, really, honestly, I want to get accepted by the Latin
We got a kick
people,
out of that.
Yeah. So I found out they thought I was okay anyway. I didn't have to take the Spanish name. But I did go by that for a while. But I played with Tito Puente. I played with Ray Barreto and people like that. So last year I decided after 50 years of not playing Latin music, I want to make another Latin record.
Fantastic.
So I was going to record some of the great musicians in New York and L.A. and maybe Puerto Rico and Cuba. And a friend of mine who's Edesio Alejandro, who's a great Cuban composer, when I told him about that, he mentioned it to the Minister of Culture of Cuba. And I was invited, the Cuban Minister of Culture invited me to come over to Havana and do concerts. So last summer, I did 2 concerts at the Opera House with all the fantastic Cuban musicians. Omar Portando, from the Buena Vista Social Club, sang.
Yeah, I love that movie.
She sang with me in my concert. And we had 2,000 people each night, and I was back in my
How nice.
my happy place, just playing Latin music, all my songs. And actually, it's being made into a film. It's being cut into a motion picture, a documentary film. This trip to Cuba, playing.
You got a lot going on.
It's something I'm really happy about and proud about.
What else? You want to plug the Fulfillment Fund and Songs of Our Lives? You still involved with that?
Fulfillment Fund is a fantastic organization, mostly in California. A good friend of mine, Gary Gitnick, started about 34 years ago. And it's an organization that helps about 2,500 young students a year from the most disadvantaged parts of Los Angeles and some other places too. It gives them an opportunity to help them through high school into colleges with all kinds of support, scholarships. And everything.
Yeah.
So about 10 years ago, Gary asked me if, I know what, my wife Joan became a co-president of the Friends of the Fulfillment Fund, a sort of auxiliary group, ancillary group. And she asked me if I would do a concert in someone's house when I just play some of my songs and maybe they'd raise some money. So we did. We raised quite a bit of money. Raised $100,000, something like that, in someone's house, people promising money. And Gary Gitnick was not a musician, but he didn't waste a beat and say, what can we do next year? So I started doing concerts of friends who were songwriters.
It's an impressive list.
We had everyone.
I'm telling you.
Yeah,
what I wouldn't have given to see.
I'll tell you the very first year. I'll tell you here's what we had the very first year. First of all, Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil.
Oh.
We had Lieber and Stoller.
Oh, great.
Man.
Melissa Manchester, Bill Withers, Steve Terrell singing.
Sedaka did it, didn't he?
Hal David singing.
Yeah.
And Alan Bergman. This is all only the first concert.
Amazing.
So we've done 10 years where I had Backrack and all these people.
I saw the list today. Staggering.
Yeah, we did. And of course, we raised a lot of money for this group.
So Charles Fox is give us the website too, so people can go there and look at your stuff.
Well, it's Charles Fox Music.
CharlesFoxMusic.com. You've got this HBO thing happening.
You won't see yet, but a show that I've just completed. We're working on now with Norman Steinberg, your friend.
We love Norman.
Yeah, I do too. We did it. We did a musical based on an 18th century place called School for Scandal, and we're just now taking meetings. We've completed it, and with Arthur Hamilton, who's my collaborator, who wrote "Cry Me a River," and we're here to begin getting to theaters. We hope to move it to Broadway.
That's great.
Yeah.
You're busy.
I'm busy. Yeah.
And I just want to thank 2 people too, Chris DeRose, who helped with the research, and our friend Jared O'Connell, who set up this wonderful keyboard.
Well, thank you. It was fun to play, and I see all your notes. It's very impressive.
This is your whole career in about 12 cards. Charles,
believe me, I'll never forget you singing my songs. That was that touches me.
And you're not off the hook yet.
Oh, not yet? Oh.
Because this is the end of the show.
Yeah. Why don't we let Charles do one by himself?
Oh. Okay.
Song?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Surprise us.
Thank you.
What a special treat this episode was.
This was amazing.
This may be my new favorite episode out of 250, Charles.
This was amazing.
Aaron, look at your
I love it.
Your grateful audience here.
Well,
on
first
the
of all,
other side
thank
of the
you
glass.
guys for really, you know too much about me. It's just that simple.
Well, listen.
But I appreciate it, and you guys are great. I had a good time myself.
There's plenty we didn't even get to. We didn't get to Marcel Marceau and Fred Astaire.
You have to come
And
back.
you'll have to come back.
We'll come back.
And
Invite me
entertain
back
us.
again. I'll come back.
Come back
again.
with Norman.
And I got to
Steinberg.
put you on the spot again.
Yeah.
At the end of Zach,
Uh-oh.
they had a song ready to get what you got if, you know.
Don't ask me to play that. I can't remember that for the life of me.
Okay,
Yeah.
here.
gonna sing it?
You can fake it. I know it starts a
can't
bum,
remember
bum,
it.
bum, 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 bum. Someone's playing tricks on me. Where is that quiet kid I used to be not long ago?
You could cut this,
One
Gilbert.
I used to know.
You are amazing. I have
Isn't
to
he
tell you.
something else?
I don't remember that. I honestly don't remember that. You know, it's funny. One night we were in the theater years ago, and there was an Albert Brooks movie. I think it was Albert Brooks, and he was with the girl, and they went back to her house, or she went back to his house, and they find that they're both into theme songs. And he said, "Really, I love theme songs." And he said, "What's your favorite?" And he starts to play the Bugaloos. It was a Sid and Marty Krofft show.
Of course.
I forgot that I wrote that, honestly.
Oh, wow.
And I turned to my wife, and they're singing the Bugaloos on the air and everywhere. And I turned to my wife, and I said, "I think I wrote that."
That's great.
And then on the screen credit, I saw, I knew I did.
Oh, my God.
You know, I've written a lot of stuff. Usually don't forget it. But
We got somebody else we got to get on the show, so we're gonna
yeah.
we're gonna
But
bid
before
Charles
I
a fond
go,
farewell.
Here I am, take a look at me. I'm high as a kite and I'm twice as free, like a dream that was meant to be. This time I'm fine and I'm ready to get what you got if you're ready or not. Ready to get what you got if you're ready or not. You're gonna come back. You're gonna memorize that
I'm gonna have
song.
to go back and learn that song
and
again.
You're gonna learn that song.
I'm going to have to learn that.
Oh, Charles.
play
But thanks for reviving it anyway.
Gilbert, you got to go straight to the Philippines with that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Guys,
well,
I had a lot of fun, really.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Charles. This
inviting
is
me.
a real
I-
treat for us.
This has been terrific. And okay, this has been Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast with my co-host Frank Santopadre and a guy who composed pretty much everything.
Pretty much.
Charlie Fox.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
a great
you,
pleasure.
Charles.
Thanks for
Thank you.
inviting me back again. I had a great
Oh,
time.
we will.
Absolutely.
We will.
You bet.